All right, so we're diving deep today on a passage I bet you know pretty well already.
Oh, yeah.
Galatians 6, 9 to 10. But
Definitely
we're
familiar.
not doing the, Sunday school overview here. We want to see what pastors are doing with it.
Right. Getting creative.
Yeah, like how are they actually using this in sermons
Hmm.
to make it, fresh and interesting for people who've heard it a million times.
Exactly. Because everyone in the pews is like, oh, yeah, Galatians 6, 9 to 10. I know this one.
Right, exactly. So we want to give some ideas to pastors or Bible study leaders, anyone who's teaching on this.
Yeah, steal these ideas.
Steal these ideas, exactly. So Um, first up, we have Canvas Church, and their whole angle was so interesting. They were all about individual impact.
Yeah, like not getting overwhelmed by the hugeness of the world's
Right. It's
problems.
so easy to feel like, oh my gosh, what can I even do?
Yeah, you're just one person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they really pushed back on that. They had this phrase, "Do for one what you wish you could do for everyone."
Oh, I like that.
It's catchy, right? It's like, okay, I can't solve world hunger, but I can, help out at the local food bank or whatever.
Right. Or just that one person you see who's struggling.
Yeah, and that's actually living out the verse.
Yeah, it's not waiting for some big opportunity to, single-handedly change the world.
Exactly. It's about what you can do right now in your own little corner of the world.
Love that.
All right, now for a totally different perspective, Mount Olive, Austin, they linked Galatians 6, 9 to 10 to mothers.
Mothers. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, like the perseverance of mothers.
Oh, okay.
It's all that, behind the scenes work that they do, all the giving and caring, even when it feels like no one's noticing.
Yeah, and it's never ending. Right.
Never ending, and you don't always see the immediate impact.
Yeah, it matters so much.
Right. And that's
It-
kind of like God's love for us too. Right? It's constant, even when we don't see the results right away.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, now get ready for this one. Shoreline Church went in a completely different direction. They framed the verse around freedom as responsibility.
Freedom is responsibility.
Yeah. And they actually used a quote from Charles Manson to illustrate the wrong idea of freedom.
Oh, wow. Using Charles Manson in a sermon that's bold.
Talk about a way to get people's attention.
Definitely. So what do they say about him?
Well, they basically said that Manson's idea of freedom was all about doing whatever he wanted, regardless of the consequences.
Right, like a very selfish, distorted view of freedom.
Exactly. And they contrasted that with the true freedom that comes from serving others, from using your liberty to do good in the world.
So it's not just about, I can do whatever I want. It's about, I have the freedom to choose what's right.
Right. And recognizing that your choices have an impact on other people.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to frame it.
Now let's dig into some of the deeper theological themes that these pastors explored.
Redemption Church. Belvedere had a really interesting take on the sowing and reaping idea.
Okay, what do they say?
Well, instead of just focusing on, the future reward, they were saying that eternal life isn't something we wait for in heaven. It starts here.
Here and now, right through the power of the Holy Spirit.
So it's not just about pie in the sky when you die.
No, it's about experiencing the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, all that stuff in our lives right now.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's about living out the reality of our salvation every day.
So it adds another dimension to that whole sowing and reaping thing.
Right, it's not just sowing for a future harvest, but for a transformation that starts in the present.
It makes you think about what seeds you're planting in your own life
Exactly, your thoughts, your actions, your words.
and how those things are shaping you into the person you're becoming.
Oh, that's good.
So it's like a constant sowing and reaping happening all the time.
I feel like that could spark some really good conversations in a small group setting.
Yeah, it definitely gets you thinking.
Okay, speaking of sowing and reaping, Redemption Church also used this really relatable analogy to drive home the point.
Oh, yeah. What was
That
that?
farming analogy.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
So simple, but so effective. You wouldn't plant corn seeds and expect to harvest apples, right?
Right, different seeds, different crops.
Exactly. And they applied that same logic to our spiritual lives.
Makes
What you sow is what you reap.
So if you're sowing seeds of kindness and generosity,
You're going to reap a harvest of those things.
and if you're sowing seeds of anger and bitterness,
Well, you know what you're going to get.
it's a pretty sobering thought.
It is, but it's also empowering because it means we have a choice
We can choose what kind of seeds we want to plant.
and ultimately what kind of harvest we want to reap.
That's a good word.
Now, Friesland Community Church, they really emphasized the importance of restoration within the church.
Okay, tell me more about that.
They focused on that line in Galatians 6:10 about doing good to all people. especially to those who belong to the family of believers.
Right. So it's about taking care of each other within the church community.
Exactly. And they talked about it in very practical terms, offering support during tough times, extending forgiveness when someone messes up.
Yeah, because we all mess up.
We all do. And they were saying that the church should be a place where people can get back on their feet.
A place of healing and restoration.
Right. And that really challenges us to think about what it means to do good in the context of the church.
Yeah, it's not just about showing up on Sundays and singing a few songs.
It's about actively loving and serving one another.
Putting our faith into action.
Exactly. And I think that's a message that's especially relevant today when it's so easy to write people off or judge them for their mistakes.
Yeah, we need more grace in the world and in the church.
So true. All right, before we move on, I want to touch on some of the real-life illustrations these pastors use to bring these ideas to life. Canvas Church shared a story about a guy named Max Smith.
What did he do?
He's a church member who's been faithfully visiting prisoners for over a decade.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and it's not about some grand heroic gesture. It's just quiet faithfulness, showing up week after week, offering companionship and support to people who are often forgotten.
That's really inspiring.
It really is, and it's a powerful example of how even seemingly small acts of service done consistently over time can have a profound impact.
It's not about the size of the action, but the heart behind it.
Exactly, and remember Shoreline Church with their Charles Manson quote?
Oh yeah, how could I forget?
Well, he also used a quote from C.S. Lewis that really stuck with me. He said, "Every time you make a choice, you are turning the central part of you, the part of you that chooses, into something a little different from what it was before. And taking your life as a whole, with all your innumerable choices, all your life long, you are slowly turning this central thing either into a heavenly creature or into a hellish creature."
Whoa, that's intense.
It is, right? It really makes you think about the weight of our choices.
Every choice matters.
It really does. And it's not just about the immediate consequences, but the kind of person we're becoming over time
It's like we're constantly shaping our own destinies.
and the destinies of those around us.
Yeah, because our choices affect other people too.
It's all connected.
It really is. So what are we choosing today? Are we choosing to be heavenly creatures or hellish creatures?
That's a question we should all be asking ourselves, and especially as we prepare to teach or preach on this passage.
Because it's not just about conveying information.
It's about challenging people to actually live out these truths,
To put their faith into action.
to go out and make a difference in the world.
So let's all go do some good, shall we?
Sounds like a plan.
It's interesting, as we're looking at these different takes on Galatians 6, 9 to 10,
Yeah.
that little phrase, do not grow weary in doing good, it keeps popping up.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it's so easy to kind of gloss over that part.
Right.
We get caught up in the reaping the harvest, the outcomes.
The results.
Yeah, but the verse is also about the process, the sticking with it, even when it's hard.
It's like we want that instant gratification.
Totally. But the Christian life isn't always like that, is it?
No, it's definitely not. It's more like a marathon than a sprint.
So many ups and downs.
And detours and unexpected turns. Exactly. So that's where that do not grow weary part becomes so important.
Yeah, it's like a reminder, a pep talk from Paul.
To keep going, even when we feel discouraged or exhausted or like our efforts aren't making a difference.
Like you're just spinning your wheels.
Exactly. And that's when it's easy to just want to give up.
Throw in the towel.
But this verse is saying, nope, keep going, keep sowing those seeds of goodness.
Because you never know what might grow.
Right. And even if we don't see the results right away, God sees them.
Yeah, he's keeping track.
And he's using our efforts for his purposes.
It's like that Mother Teresa quote, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's not about the size of the action, it's about the heart behind it.
The motivation.
Exactly, and I think that ties back to what Canvas Church was saying about focusing on the individual impact we can make right where we are.
Right. It's not about waiting for some grand opportunity.
It's about being faithful in the little things.
The everyday stuff.
And trusting that God will multiply those efforts.
He's the master gardener, after all.
Okay, so Oak Grove Baptist Church, they had some interesting thoughts on this too.
Okay, what did they say?
They didn't really have a single overarching theme, but they emphasized that every decision we make, even the small ones, is like planting a seed.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of like the butterfly effect thing.
Right, even the tiniest actions can have ripple effects that we might not even realize.
Of throwing a pebble in a pond.
Exactly. Those ripples can spread out further than we can see.
And it adds a whole new level of accountability to our choices, doesn't it?
Yeah, because we're not just affecting ourselves.
But influencing the lives of those around us.
And ultimately, those choices are shaping us into the kind of people we're becoming.
Heavenly creature or hellish creature.
Right. C.S. Lewis again.
It's a powerful image.
It is so, you know what I really appreciate about all these different interpretations?
What's that?
It's how they challenge us to go beyond a surface level understanding of Galatians 6:9-10.
It's not just a nice verse to put on a greeting card.
Right. It's a call to action.
It's about examining our lives and seeing if we're actually living out this principle of sowing and reaping.
It's asking yourself some tough questions.
Like, what kind of seeds am I planting?
Am I investing my time and energy in things that will produce good fruit?
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness?
All those good things.
Or am I focused on things that will ultimately leave me feeling empty?
Yeah, those are the kinds of questions that can really make you squirm.
Especially if you're honest with yourself.
But I think that's the point, right?
So getting real with ourselves, with God, with the impact our choices are having on the world around us.
Because this verse, it has real practical implications for our lives.
It's not just some abstract theological concept.
It should be shaping our relationships, our decisions, our work, our everything.
It's about how we treat people, how we spend our money, how we use our time.
Every aspect of our lives.
And one of the traps I think we can fall into is thinking that doing good has to be this big, grand, heroic gesture.
Yeah, like saving the world.
Right. But as we've seen with these examples, true goodness is often found in the mundane,
Yeah, everyday stuff.
the small acts of kindness and service that we offer to those around us.
Like Max Smith visiting those prisoners every week.
It's not about getting recognition or applause.
It's about showing up and making a difference one life at a time.
And it's about not growing weary in the process.
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road.
We can have all the good intentions in the world.
But if we don't have the stamina to keep going when things get tough,
We'll never see the harvest.
and I think that's where community comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Friesland Community Church, they really hit on that.
We need each other.
We need people to support us, encourage us, remind us of the truth when we start to lose sight of it.
To pick us up when we stumble and help us get back on track.
Because let's face it, the Christian life is hard,
It is.
but we don't have to do it alone.
So as you're listening to this, I want you to think about your own sphere of influence.
Where can you make a difference?
Who are the people in your life that you can invest in?
What seeds can you sow today that will bear fruit in the lives of others?
It doesn't have to be anything huge or dramatic.
Maybe it's just listening to a friend who's going through a hard time.
Or volunteering at a local soup kitchen.
Or sending an encouraging text to someone who needs it.
Sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact.
Remember, every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every seed of goodness that we plant,
It has the potential to create a ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves.
and who knows, maybe one day someone will be sharing your story.
As an example of someone who truly lived out the message of Galatians 6:9-10.
Now that would be a legacy worth leaving behind. One thing that I notice a lot of these pastors were addressing is some of the ways that people can kind of get Galatians 6:9-10 wrong,
Oh, yeah.
especially with that sowing and reaping idea.
Yeah, it's easy to turn it into like a cosmic vending machine.
Right,
Like
exactly.
if I do enough good things, then God's going to give me health and wealth.
Yeah, the prosperity gospel kind of thing.
It's like a transaction.
But it's not about that.
Not at all.
And Redemption Church Belvedere, they really push back on that.
Okay.
They were saying the real harvest isn't about material stuff.
Right.
It's about spiritual growth.
It's about becoming more like Jesus.
Yeah, about cultivating those fruits of the Spirit.
So it's less about what we're getting from God and more about who we're becoming in God.
Yeah, that's like
It's a transformation.
And it's not always visible, is it?
No, it's often a very internal process.
It's happening on the inside.
And it takes time,
It's not a quick fix.
like sanctification. It's a lifelong journey.
It makes me think of that quote,
Oh, which one?
Frederick Buechner. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's like that sweet spot where your passions and your gifts align with the needs of the world.
And that's where you find true fulfillment.
Not from chasing after your own selfish desires.
But from aligning yourself with God's purpose for your life.
And often that purpose involves serving others.
Yeah, even when it's hard.
Even when it costs you something.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on Galatians 6:9-10,
Yeah.
I think the challenge for all of us
For all of us listening. Yeah.
is to really grapple with what it means to do good in our own specific situations.
In our own little corners of the world.
Right. What are the needs in our communities that we can address?
What are the talents and resources that God has given us?
That we can use to make a difference.
And it's not about striving for perfection. Or trying to earn God's favor.
It's about surrendering to His grace.
And letting Him work through us.
Even in our mess-ups.
Because we're all messy.
We are.
But God can still use us.
And as we step out in faith
and obedience,
we can trust that He'll give us the strength we need
to keep going.
To keep sowing those seeds of goodness.
Even when we don't see the results right away.
Because the harvest is in His hands.
He's the one who makes things grow.
And He's faithful.
He'll bring it about in His perfect timing.
Keep diving deeper, friends.
Keep exploring, keep learning.
And never grow weary of doing good.
That's the key.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.